everybody. Welcome back to the Trading Post. You know who it is. It's me, Fred, and my boy Noodle, the star of the show. Tell him, Noodle. Tell him what we're going to talk about today, buddy. What are we talking about? We're going to talk about Bigfoot, ain't we? Yeah, we're going squatching, baby. Going squatching. Check out the new shirt. Yeah, you like that, right? Uh-huh. Y'all ain't got no Beavis and Butthead Sasquatch shirt, do you? That's right. Anyways, we're going to get to this show here in a minute, all right? I just wanted to hop on here, give you guys the intro here with me and old Noodle, your buddy, superstar right here, okay? And we'll be right with you, man. This is going to be a long one. I got a lot of notes on it, so it may have to be broken down into 2 episodes. I'm not sure yet, but we're going to find out, won't we? All right. Till then, I'm going to see you guys soon, all right? Bye. All right. We got Noodle back in the bed. He's ready to get his nap on. Listen, we got episode 26 Bigfoot, like I said before, right? All right, before we get we going squatching, y'all. We going squatching today. Look, we're going to start out. I'm going to brush up on this. We're going to do the overall basic understanding of what Bigfoot is, right? Then we're going to jump into a story. Okay, that's my main point. I want to jump into that. Then we're going to go through some other stuff and different encounters, whatnot, right? We're going to jump into all this. So, let's get cracking. Let's get it started. All right, we ain't going to take too long, but there's a lot of damn notes. I'm going to tell you that. I got to break this shit down. It might have to be 2 episodes, 3, maybe even 4. I don't know, but we'll see what we can come up with. So, here we go. All right, episode 26, Bigfoot. Now, Bigfoot is commonly referred to as Sasquatch, is a large and hairy human-like mythical creature alleged by some to inhabit forests in North America, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot is featured in both American and Canadian folklore, and since the mid-20th century has grown into a cultural icon, permeating popular culture and becoming the subject of its own distinct subculture. Enthusiasts of Bigfoot, such as those within the pseudoscience of cryptozoology, have offered various forms of dubious evidence to prove Bigfoot's existence. Now, I don't get, listen, dubious, come on, man. Whoever wrote this shit, I'm just saying. Including anecdotal claims of sightings as well as alleged photographs, video and audio recordings, hair samples, and casts of large footprints. However, the scientific consensus is that Bigfoot and alleged evidence is a combination of folklore, misidentification, and hoax rather than a living animal. Folklorists trace the phenomenon of Bigfoot to a combination of factors and sources, including the European wild man figure, folk tales, and indigenous cultures. Examples of similar folk tales of wild hair-covered humanoids exist throughout the world, such as the skunk ape of the southeastern United States, the almas, yeren and yeti in Asia, the Australian yowie, and creatures in the mythologies of indigenous people. Also, I want to add to that, the West Virginian Bigfoot is the Yahoo, or the Yahoo. So wishful thinking, a cultural increase in environmental concerns, and overall societal awareness of the subject have been cited as additional factors. All right, that's where we're going to leave off with that part. Now, we're going to flip this script, and we're going to go to the story. Now, this is the interesting part, and I want to get this done early, because I know a lot of people don't watch my videos the whole way through. I don't expect it, because some of them is very freaking long. So, we're gonna go. Well, this is one of the experiences. All right, this is one of the stories that we got. Right, one of the witness encounters. Now, in 1924, Albert Ostman, a lumberjack and woodsman, went to the area for a vacation. Ostman had heard stories about the man-beasts who supposedly roamed these woods, but refused to believe them. As Ostman lay asleep one evening, a Sasquatch purportedly picked him up and carried him off while he was in his sleeping bag. Ostman was carried in his sleeping bag across country for 3 hours by the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch dropped Ostman down on a plateau. Standing around him was a family of 4 of the creatures. Albert was kept captive by the Sasquatch. The captors were 2 adults and two children which held Ostman captive for 6 days. One of the Bigfoots was reported as being 8 foot tall. Ostman did not use his gun on them as they had done him no harm. He stayed with the Bigfoot family for a week. Ostman ate sweet tasting grass that they gave him. According to Ostman, the female Sasquatch washed and stacked leaves. Albert escaped by making the large male Sasquatch groggy by feeding him snuff and giving him hot coffee to wash it down after. He did not tell his story for more than 24 years after it happened for fear of being thought of as crazy. Which rightfully so, because, this is back in the day, and it was more critical, back then than it is now. So it was kind of a hot topic with stuff like this. So as more Sasquatch stories appeared in the press, Albert decided to tell his story to a local newspaper, The Province, in 1957. Okay? All I knew was that I was being carried and that the sleeping bag was pulled so tight around my neck that I almost choked. He was taken to a cave-like shelter under a rock cliff where he saw an old female Sasquatch and a young male and female. The old man was about 7 foot tall and weighed between 500 and 600 pounds. The old lady was slightly smaller, while the young male stood 6 foot and weighed 200 pounds. The young female was about 6 foot tall and 100 pounds. They were completely covered with short hair and wore no clothing. Their food consisted of fruits and nuts and no meat. Ostman said he was running short of supplies and decided he must escape from the family. Although at no time did they molest or harm him. They were definitely human, although primitive, and seemed more curious about me than anything, he said. Every time I would attempt to leave, though, the old man would block the way. But one day I was taking a bit of snuff, and I noticed the old man was very curious. So I handed him the tin. He just opened his mouth and emptied the tin in one gulp, and was he ever sick? While the old man was busy being sick, I grabbed my belongings and ran as fast as I could. I got away okay, and I wasn't harmed a bit. But after living with them a week, I'm sure they are merely a band of Indians that have lost touch with civilization. They don't want to harm anyone and don't want anyone to harm them. My advice to anyone going out hunting for them is to just leave them alone. They probably don't want any part of us, and I don't blame them. Their speech was a sort of chattering, and even though they wore no clothing, they used blankets made of moss, woven with strips of cedar bark, and they never used a fire. Ostman agreed the female Sasquatch sighted by Mr. Rowe was quite probably the young female of the family which held him captive, now grown up. Okay? Now that's the story that I was wanting to tell you. So I got that out of the way. Let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of the stuff we got going on. Okay, we're going to go into the description. The description. Bigfoot is often described as a large, muscular, and bipedal human or ape-like creature covered in black, dark brown, or dark reddish hair. Anecdotal descriptions estimate a height of roughly 6 to 9 feet or 1.8 to 2.7 meters, with some descriptions having the creature standing as tall as 10 to 15 feet, which is 3 to 4.6 meters. Some alleged observations describe Bigfoot as more human than ape, particularly in regard to the face. In 1971, multiple people in Dallas, Oregon, filed a police. In Dallas, Oregon, filed a police report describing an overgrown ape, and one of the men claimed to have sighted the creature in the scope of his rifle, but could not bring himself to shoot it because it looked more human than animal. Common descriptions include broad shoulders, no visible neck, and long arms, which many skeptics attribute to misidentification of a bear upright. Some alleged nighttime sightings have stated the creature's eyes glowed yellow or red. However, eyeshine is not present in humans or any other known great apes, and so proposed explanations for observable eyeshine off of the ground in the forest include owls, raccoons, or possums perched in foliage. Now, Michael Rugg, the owner of the Bigfoot Discovery Museum, claims to have smelled Bigfoot, stating, "Imagine a skunk that had rolled around in dead animals and had hung around the garbage pits." Now, the enormous footprints for which the creature is named are claimed to be as large as 24 inches or 610 millimeters long, or 8 inches and 8 inches wide, or 200 millimeters wide. Some footprints casts have also continued claw marks, making it likely that they came from known animals such as bears, which have 5 toes and claws. Okay, now we're going to go into the history. This is the folklore and early records of Bigfoot. Ecologist Robert Pyle argues that most cultures have accounts of human-like giants in their folk history, expressing a need for some larger-than-life creature. Each language had its name for the creature featured in the vocal version of such legends. Many names mean something like wild man or hairy man, although other names describe common actions that it was said to perform, such as eating clams or shaking trees. European folklore traditionally had many instances of the wild man of the woods, or wild people, of ten described as a naked creature covered in hair with only the face, feet, and hands, and in some cases the knees, elbows, or breasts remaining bare. These European wild people ranged from human hermits to human-like monsters. Upon migrating to North America, myths of the wild people persisted, with documented sightings of wild people reported in what is now New York State and Pennsylvania. In a 2007 paper titled "Images of the Wild Man Inside and Outside Europe," said, "To be sure, the modern Sasquatch is largely the product of a European-derived culture, as possibly to an even greater extent is the Australian Yehu. Accordingly, traces of the European wild man are discernible in both figures. Yet the Sasquatch is partly rooted in Amerindian representations of hairy hominoids, even though the relationship between these, which are often described as small, and the giant Sasquatch of the popular Canadian and American imagination is hardly straightforward." Okay. Now we're going to talk about the rest of this. Many of the indigenous cultures across the North American continent include tales of mysterious, hair-covered creatures living in forests, and according to anthropologist David Daegleek, these legends existed long before contemporary reports of the creature described as Bigfoot. These stories differed in their details regionally and between families in the same community, and are particularly prevalent in the Pacific Northwest. Now, Chief Michel of the Nlaka-Pamu at Lytton, British Columbia, told such a story to Charles Hill Tout in 1898. On the Tool River Indian Reservation, petroglyphs created by a tribe of Yokuts at a site called Painted Rock are alleged by Kathy Moskowitz Strain, author of the 2008 book Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, Bigfoot in Native Culture, to depict a group of Bigfoots called the Family. The largest glyph is called Hairy Man, and they are estimated to be 1,000 years old. According to the Tulare County Board of Education in 1975, Bigfoot, the Hairy Man, was a creature that was like a great big giant with long, shaggy hair. His long, shaggy hair made him look like a big animal. He was good in a way because he ate the animals that might harm people, and Yokuts' parents warned their children not to venture near the river at night, or they may encounter the creature. Now, 16th century Spanish explorers and Mexican settlers told tales of the Los Vigilantes Oscuros, or the Dark Watchers. Large creatures alleged to stalk their camps at night. In the region that is now Mississippi, a Jesuit priest was living with the Natchez in 1721 and reported stories of hairy creatures in the forest known to scream loudly and steal livestock. Okay. Now, in 1929, Indian agent and teacher J.W. Burns, who lived and worked with the Sales Nation, then called the Chehalis First Nation, published a collection of stories titled Introducing BC's Hairy Giants, a collection of strange tales about British Columbia's wild man as told by those who say they have seen them, in Maclean's magazine. The stories offered various anecdotal reports of wild people, including an encounter a tribal member had with a hairy wild woman who could speak the language of the Douglas First Nation. Burns coined the term Sasquatch, believed to be the anglicized version of Saskets, roughly translating to hairy man in the Hagamelam language. Burns describes the Sasquatch as a tribe of hairy people whom they claim have always lived in the mountains, in tunnels and caves. The folklore of the Cherokee includes tales of the Sulkalu, who were described as slant-eyed giants that resided in the Appalachian Mountains and is sometimes associated with Bigfoot. Members of the Lumi tell tales about creatures known as Siemquets. The stories are similar to each other in the general descriptions of Siemquets, but details differed among various family accounts concerning the creature's diet and activities. Some regional versions tell of more threatening creatures. The Stiyaha or Quiquiai were a nocturnal race, and children were warned against saying the names so that the monsters would not come and carry them off to be killed. The Iroquois tell of an aggressive, hair-covered giant with rock-hard skin known as the Otniyarhe, or stone giant, more commonly referred to as the Genosqua. In 1847, Paul Kane reported stories by the natives about Skookums, a race of cannibalistic wild men living on the peak of Mount St. Helens, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, in his 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, writes of a story he was told by an elderly mountain man named Ballman, in which a foul-smelling bipedal creature ransacking his beaver trapping camp stalked him, and later became hostile when it fatally broke his companion's neck. Roosevelt notes that Ballman appeared fearful while telling the story, but attributed the trapper's German ancestry to have potentially influenced him. Okay. Now, that's crazy. Roosevelt even had a story in this joint. Watch out. Watch out. We're getting up there. Man, we got some accounts. All right, so let's go to the next one. The Alutiiq of the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska tell of the Nantinaq, a Bigfoot-like creature. This folklore was featured in the Discovery Plus television series Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, which claims the Nantinaq was responsible for the population decrease of Portlock in the 1940s. What? I never checked that. We're going to have to check that out, y'all. We know where to look now, don't we? Now, less menacing versions have been recorded, such as one by Reverend Elkanah Walker in 1840. Now, Walker was a Protestant missionary who recorded stories of giants among the natives living near Spokane, Washington. These giants were said to live on and around the peaks of the nearby mountains, stealing salmon from the fishermen's nets. All right. That was pretty brief. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. Now, we're going to go to the Ape Canyon incident. On July 16th, 1924, an article in the Oregonian made national news when a story was published describing a conflict between a group of gold prospectors and a group of ape men in a gorge near Mount St. Helens. The prospectors reported encountering gorilla men near their remote cabin. One of the men, Fred Beck, indicated that he struck one of the creatures with rifle fire. That night they reported coming under attack by the creatures, who were said to have thrown large rocks at the cabin, damaging the roof and knocking Beck unconscious. The men fled the area the following morning. The U.S. Forest Service investigated the site of the alleged incident. The investigators found no compelling evidence of the event and concluded it was likely a fabrication. Stories of large hair-covered bipedal ape men or mountain devils had been a persistent piece of folklore in the area for centuries, prior to the alleged incident. Today, the area is known as Ape Canyon and is cemented within Bigfoot-related folklore. Wow, y'all. That's crazy. Let's not going to take a break for just 1 second. Get back to it. All right, y'all. We're back to it. Now we're going to do... Sorry, I took a big sip. Anyways, origin of the Bigfoot name. Let's get into that. In 1958, Jerry Crew, bulldozer operator for a logging company in Humboldt County, California, discovered a set of large 16-inch or 410-millimeter human-like footprints sunk deep within the mud in the Six Rivers National Forest. Upon informing his co-workers, many claimed to have seen similar tracks on previous job sites, as well as telling of odd incidents such as an oil drum weighing 450 pounds or 200 kilometers having been moved without explanation. The logging company men soon began utilizing Bigfoot to describe the apparent culprit. Crew and others initially believed someone was playing a prank on them. After observing more of these massive footprints, he contacted reporter Andrew Genzoli of the Humboldt Times newspaper. Okay? And you can look all this stuff up and fact check this stuff. You know what I mean? Find your truth, like I always say. Now, Genzoli interviewed lumber workers and wrote articles about the mysterious footprints, introducing the name Bigfoot in relation to the tracks and the local tales of large, hairy wild men. A plaster cast was made of the footprints, and Crew appeared holding one of the casts on the front page of the newspaper on October 6, 1958. The story spread rapidly as Genzoli began to receive correspondence from major media outlets including the New York Times and Los Angeles Times. As a result, the term Bigfoot became widespread as a reference to an apparently large unknown creature leaving massive footprints in Northern California. As a result, Willow Creek and Humboldt County are considered by some to be the Bigfoot capital of the world. Well, that's interesting. Now we all learned some more stuff, huh? Now let's go to the next story. Ray Wallace and Rant Mullins. In 2002, the family of Jerry Crew's deceased co-worker, Ray Wallace, revealed a collection of large carved wooden feet stored in his basement. They stated that Wallace had been secretly making the footprints and was responsible for the tracks discovered by Crew. Wallace was inspired by another hoaxer, Rant Mullins, who revealed information about his hoaxes in 1982. In the 1930s in Toledo, Washington, Mullins and a group of other foresters carved pairs of large feet made of wood and used them to create footprints in the mud to scare huckleberry pickers in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. The group would also claim to be responsible for hoaxing the alleged Ape Canyon incident in 1924. Mullins and the group of foresters began referring to themselves as the St. Helens Apes and would later have a cave dedicated to them. Now, Wallace, also from Toledo, knew Mullins and stated he collaborated with him to obtain a pair of the large wooden feet and subsequently used them to create footprints on the 1958 construction site as a means to scare away potential thieves. Okay, now we're going to go to the next one. Other historical uses of Bigfoot. In the 1830s, a Wyandot chief was nicknamed Bigfoot due to the significant size, strength, and large feet. Potawatomi chief Mayunksuk, known as Chief Bigfoot, is today synonymous with the area of Walworth County, Wisconsin, and has a state park and school named for him. William A. Wallace, a famous 19th century Texas Ranger, was nicknamed Bigfoot due to his large feet and today has a town named for him, Bigfoot, Texas. Now, Lakota leader Spotted Elk was also called Chief Bigfoot. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, at least 2 enormous marauding grizzly bears were widely noted in the press and each nicknamed Bigfoot. The first grizzly bear, called Bigfoot, was reportedly killed near Fresno, California in 1895 after killing sheep for 15 years. His weight was estimated at 2,000 pounds or 900 kilograms. The second one was active in Idaho in the 1890s and 1900s between the Snake and Salmon rivers, and supernatural powers were attributed to it. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Regional and other names. Many regions have differentiating names for the creatures. In Canada, the name Sasquatch is widely used, although often interchangeably with the name Bigfoot. The U.S. uses both of these names, but also numerous names and descriptions of the creatures depending on the region and area which they are allegedly sighted. These include the skunk ape in Florida and other southern states, grassman in Ohio, the folk monster in Arkansas, wood booger in Virginia, the monster of Whitehall in Whitehall, New York, Momo in Missouri, Honey Island swamp monster in Louisiana, Dewey Lake monster in Michigan, and Mogollon monster in Arizona, the Big Muddy monster in southern Illinois, and the Old Man of the Mountain in West Virginia, or the Yahoo as well. That's another one that they use in West Virginia, as well as the Yahoo or Yehu. Yahoo it was called. The term wood ape is also used by some as a means to deviate from the perceived mythical connotation surrounding the name Bigfoot. Other names include Bushman, Treeman, and Wildman. Now, proposed explanations, and this is a little skim. Various explanations have been suggested for sightings and to offer conjecture on what existing animal has been misidentified in supposed sightings of Bigfoot. Scientists typically attribute sightings to hoaxes or misidentifications of known animals and their tracks, particularly black bears. Now, misidentification, we're going to go into that. Now, bears. Scientists theorize that mistaken identification of American black bears as Bigfoot are a likely explanation for most reported sightings. Most reported sightings, not all. Okay? Particularly when observers view a subject from afar or in a dense foliage or there are poor lighting conditions. Additionally, black bears have been observed and recorded walking upright often as the result of an injury. While upright, adult black bears stand roughly 5 to 7 feet or 1.5 to 2.1 meters, and grizzly bears roughly 8 to 9 feet, which is 2.4 meters to 2.7 meters. Accordingly to the data, scientist Flo Foxon, more people report seeing Bigfoot in areas with documented black bear populations. Foxon concludes if Bigfoot is there, it may be many bears. Foxon acknowledges that alleged Bigfoot sightings have been reported in areas with minimal or no known black bear populations. She states, although this may be interpreted as evidence for the existence of an unknown hominid in North America, it is also explained by misidentification of other animals, including humans, among other possibilities. Okay, so let's go to the next subject is escaped apes, right? Some have proposed that sightings of Bigfoot may simply be people observing and misidentifying known great apes such as chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans that have escaped from captivity, such as zoos, circuses, and exotic pets belonging to private owners. This explanation is often proposed in relation to the skunk ape, as some scientists argue the humid subtropical climate of the southeastern United States could potentially support a population of escaped apes. My God. Talking about rabbit holes. Man. Now we're going to go to the next subject. Humans, right? Humans have been mistaken for Bigfoot, with some incidents leading to injuries. In 2013, a 21-year-old man in Oklahoma was arrested after he told law enforcement he accidentally shot his friend in the back while their group was allegedly hunting for Bigfoot. In 2017, a shamanist wearing clothing made of animal furs was vacationing in a North Carolina forest when local reports of alleged Bigfoot sightings flooded in. The Greenville Police Department issued a public notice not to shoot Bigfoot for fear of mistakenly injuring or killing someone in a fur suit. In 2018, a person was shot at multiple times by a hunter near Helena, Montana. who claimed he mistook him for a Bigfoot. Additionally, some have attributed feral humans or hermits living in the wilderness as being another explanation for alleged Bigfoot sightings. One story, The Wild Man of the Navidad, tells of a wild ape who roamed the wilderness of eastern Texas in the mid-19th century, stealing food and goods from residents. A search party allegedly captured an escaped African slave attributed to the story. Okay, now, during the 1980s, several psychologically damaged American Vietnam veterans were stated by the state of Washington's Veteran Affairs Director, Randy Fisher, to have been living in remote wooded areas of the state. Okay, that could be an explanation right there. You know, we don't know. I mean, if they're wearing furs or something on them, you don't know. You think it's a hairy ape. So, that's the name of that thing. I was trying to think of that. Y'all, we got it now. Pareidolia. Pareidolia. Okay, that's the next subject. Some have proposed that pareidolia may explain Bigfoot sightings, specifically the tendency to observe human-like faces, and figures within a natural environment. Photos and videos of poor quality alleged to depict Bigfoots are often attributed to this phenomenon and commonly referred to as blob squatch. Never heard that term before, but okay. Now, misidentified vocalizations. The majority of mainstream scientists maintain that the source of the sounds often attributed to Bigfoot are either hoaxes, anthropomorphization, or likely misidentified and produced by known animals such as owl, wolf, coyote, and fox. Now, hoaxes. Both Bigfoot believers and non-believers agree that many reported sightings are hoaxes. Gigantopithecus. Bigfoot proponents Grover Krantz and Jeffrey H. Bourne both believe that Bigfoot could be a relict population of the extinct Southeast Asian ape species, Gigantopithecus blacki. According to Bourne, G. Black may have followed the many other species of animals that migrated across the Bering Land Bridge to the Americas. To date, no Gigantopithecus fossils have been found in the Americas. In Asia, the only recovered fossils have been of mandibles and teeth, leaving uncertainty about G. blacki's locomotion. Krantz has argued that G. blacki could have been bipedal based on his extrapolation from the shape of its mandible is not present in any fossils. Now, the consensus view is that G. blacki was quadrupedal, as its enormous mass would have made it difficult for it to adopt a bipedal gait. Anthropologist Matt Cartmill criticizes the G. blacki hypothesis. The trouble with this account is that Gigantopithecus was not a hominin and may be not even a crown group hominid. Yet the physical evidence implies that Bigfoot is an upright biped with buttocks and a long, stout, permanently adducted hallux. These are hominin autapomorphies not found in other mammals or other bipeds. It seems unlikely that Gigantopithecus would have evolved these uniquely hominin traits in parallel. Paleoanthropologist Bernard G. Campbell writes, the Gigantopithecus is in fact extinct, has been questioned by those who believed it survives as the Yeti of the Himalayas and the Sasquatch of the Northwest American coast. But the evidence for these creatures is not convincing. Now, we're going to go into extinct hominidae. Primatologist John R. Napier and anthropologist Gordon Strasenberg have suggested a species of Paranthropus as a possible candidate for Bigfoot's identity, such as Paranthropus robustus, with its gorilla-like crested skull and bipedal gait, despite the fact that fossils of Paranthropus are found only in Africa. Michael Rugg of the Bigfoot Discovery Museum presented a comparison between human Gigantopithecus and Meganthropus skulls, reconstruction made by Grover Krantz in episodes 131 and 132 of the Bigfoot Discovery Museum show. Bigfoot enthusiasts that think Bigfoot may be the missing link between apes and humans have promoted the idea that Bigfoot is a descendant of Gigantopithecus blacki. But that ape diverged from orangutans around 12 million years ago and is not related to humans. Some suggest Neanderthal, Homo erectus, or Homo heidelbergensis to be the creature, but like all other great apes, no remains of any of those species have been found in the Americas. Scientific view. Expert consensus is that allegations of the existence of Bigfoot are not credible. Belief in the existence of such a large ape-like creature is more often attributed to hoaxes, confusion, or delusion, rather than to sightings of a genuine creature. In a 1996 USA Today article, Washington State zoologist John Crane said, "There is no such thing as Bigfoot. No data other than material that's clearly been fabricated has ever been presented." The author of one review article states that, in their opinion, it is impossible even to consider cryptozoology a science if it continues to consider Bigfoot seriously. As with other similar beings, climate and food supply issues would make such a creature's survival in reported habitats unlikely. Bigfoot is alleged to live in regions unusual for a large non-human primate, i.e. temperate latitudes in the northern hemisphere. All recognized non-human apes are found in the tropics of Africa and Asia. Great apes have not been found in the fossil record in the Americas, and no Bigfoot remains are known to have been found. Phillips Stevens, a cultural anthropologist at the University at Buffalo, summarized the scientific consensus as follows. Sufficient to keep them going, what it takes to maintain any species, especially a long-lived species, is having a breeding population. That requires a substantial number spread out over a fairly wide area where they can find sufficient food and shelter to keep hidden from all the investigators. In the 1970s, when Bigfoot experts were frequently given high-profile media coverage, MacLeod writes that the scientific community generally avoided lending credence to such fringe theories by refusing even to debate them. Primatologist Jane Goodall was asked for her personal opinion of Bigfoot in a 2002 interview on National Public Radio's Science Friday. Goodall responded saying, "Well, now you will be amazed when I tell you that I'm sure that they exist." She later added, "Well, I'm a romantic, so I always wanted them to exist, and of course the big criticism of all this is, where is the body? You know, why isn't there a body? I can't answer that, and maybe they don't exist, but I want them to." In 2012, when asked again by the Huffington Post, Goodall said, "I'm fascinated and would actually love them to exist," adding, "Of course, it's strange that there has never been a single authentic hide or hair of the Bigfoot, but I've read all the accounts." Paleontologist and author Darren Naish states in a 2016 article for the Scientific American that if Bigfoot existed, an abundance of evidence would also exist that cannot be found anywhere today, making the existence of such a creature exceedingly unlikely. Naish summarizes the evidence for Bigfoot that would exist if the creature itself existed, and this would be the following. If Bigfoot existed, so would consistent reports of uniform vocalizations throughout North America, as can be identified for any existing large animal in the region, rather than the scattered and widely varied Bigfoot sounds haphazardly reported. If Bigfoot existed, so would many tracks that would be easy for experts to find, just as they easily find tracks for other rare megafauna in North America, rather than a complete lack of such tracks alongside tracks that experts agree are fraudulent. Also, finally, if Bigfoot existed, an abundance of Bigfoot DNA would already have been found, again, as it has been found for similar animals, instead of the current state of affairs where there is no confirmed DNA for such a creature whatsoever. All right. Now